You want to hit the button?
And we are live.
There it is. There it is. And we're trying to get Roger back on. Eventually, it'll happen.
Eventually. Well,
Anyhow.
hello, everybody. Sorry, y'all. I know y'all missed me. Like, who's that good-looking guy in the black shirt? Not talking about Doug.
It's me. It's me. It's me.
Oh, wait.
We're all three wearing black shirts, right? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, it's actually funny. Saying black shirts makes me think of something that happened today. I had a nice interaction with a police officer today, and it was funny because he was a land management guy. I took the kids out. We were out shooting on, state land. I thought we were good, and apparently, well, we weren't. But anyhow, so we were sitting there talking, and he's, what is it? WMA. Anyhow, and I was reading the rules from the BLM thing. And so when we were sitting there and we were talking, and I'm like, oh man, you know where I messed up? And I said, because I was thinking of the interaction that I had with the BLM stuff. And so he's like, yeah. And my son said, well, that's a joke that failed. And I didn't catch what he meant, right? Me and the cop are on the same page. And so, we're going on, and my daughter's face is turning all red, and she's like she can't believe I just made that joke. And I'm like, we get, I take my ticket and all that kind of stuff. He very nice cop. He didn't write them tickets. I said, look, this is all my fault. He said, great. Anyhow, long story short, I get in the truck and they're like, yeah, that was a horrible joke. I'm like, what joke? I don't get it. You said BLM, like Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, what? No, Bureau of Land Management. You're like, what? Yeah, I mean, you guys are the ones that got your minds all weird. The cop and I were on the same page.
It was the famous black. I think it was Samuel L. Jackson that said, you want to really make the race relations go good, stop talking about it, because whenever you literally sit there and twist everything into something racial like that, it's like, okay, well, there you go. I mean, you think that you say BLM and you're turning it into some type of joke about Black life. No, Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyhow, hey there, ho there out there in Spray Wash Land. We're not supposed to be talking about that. We're supposed to be talking about drones. We got two guests. One of them is trying to come on with us, and his name is Roger Nunamann. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure he will end up joining us at some point in time. And then Jeremy Keifer. And so Jeremy has a lot of knowledge with drones. And I guess your name was spelled wrong by Ray. Again,
I apologize, Jeremy.
I did the same thing.
I knew who it was. He didn't have to say who it was. I already knew. I'm surprised he remembers my name, to be honest.
A lot of people know Jeremy from the washing industry. I mean, that's where I first met him. And I never realized Jeremy, and so allow me this minute, to introduce Jeremy, but he's become a very good friend. But Jeremy is one of these people that's eminently qualified to talk about what we're doing here. You're also a law enforcement officer, and you run your department's drone searching, and so you're not. Understand, like tonight's guests aren't like a couple of pressure washers going, well, I think this or I think that. I mean, we've actually got people with certifications, qualifications who do this for a living and who have to do this. So Jeremy, tell people about what you do outside. Well, I want to hear about Clear Shine.
Inside and outside.
But tell them about the other stuff too.
All right. I own Clear Shine Clean, and this is our 30th year in business. And so eventually we'll get the hang of it eventually.
You keep going, Tiger.
Yeah, I know. I'm working on it. I'll figure it out one of these days. But I've also been a reserve police officer for 25 years, and with a couple different departments over the years. And about 7 years ago, I became a drone pilot before drone pilots were cool. And what we do in our department, my chief and I are both our drone pilots, 107 drone pilots. And I train with several different departments, or train with one of the big departments. But I've also actually helped out about 3 or 4 different other departments start their UAS's unmanned, the unmanned
unmanned aerial
aerial systems. So UAS is US team. So I've actually helped them with what to get and what not to get, because like everything else in pressure washing, and the pressure washing industry, there's people who have money and they want to tell you what to get, and and run out. Everybody wants to, back in the years ago, it was hot sea. Everybody, you could always tell who the sucker was that walked in, because they had a brand new hot sea machine and everything else, the latest and greatest. And I'm like, yeah, you kind of missed the boat on.
Walked into that one, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, like they spent $20,000 on a 4-gallon machine, and you're like, so that believe it or not, that's in every industry. Believe
it is. Yeah.
There's so I've helped a lot of. Hey, there he is, Roger. I've helped a lot of the departments with getting what they need to for what the good stuff is to use out there, not just what everybody's telling you to buy. And so we do search and rescue. We do. I'm actually one of the few people in Alabama area who is actually certified to do traffic homicide video mapping with drones. So I'm actually certified for that. So, which is kind of funny because, like I said, my chief and I are drone pilots, certified drone pilots, and he is actually a traffic homicide investigator. And when I went and got my certification, he didn't go. And I said, yes. I said, yeah, if you need to fly the map, you're gonna have to call me out. He's like, do what? And I said, yeah. I said, you have to be certified now to do it for court. And he said, so you mean to tell me on my own investigation, I have to call out you to come map it for me? And I said, yep. And
yes, you did.
Yeah. So actually I'm on call for other agencies. I haven't done much of that or anything yet, but that is, as legality of drones comes into existence, you'll see more and more restrictions. Actually, Florida is actually one of the most restrictive states so far. I
was going to say, I think we're going to see a lot more regulations
between like, it's crazy whenever you look at the flight area maps. And first off, let me say, I love it when we have smart people on here, because it really classes this whole podcast up a lot.
They,
when you look at like the controlled air areas around, here, people don't realize that. We'll talk about this more, I'm sure. But, air areas are basically like cones going down like this, in controlled spaces. But between Canaveral, between the major cities that we have, Tampa, Orlando, then the attractions, Disney World have their own cones out there. The capital has, then the military bases, which Florida seems to have one like every 75 miles. There's things in there. But while we're here, hold on, I'm being rude. Roger, welcome, and it's very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Ray. It's my pleasure.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Roger Nunamann. Thanks, Doug. And thanks, Jeremy, too. Roger Nunamann with Aqualine Drones. We're a aviation and manufacturing company based out of Hartford, Connecticut. We bring collectively over 300 years of professional aviation experience to the drone ecosystem.
Roger, tell him a little bit about your background. He's being modest, and tell him a little bit about your background in actual aviation, and so everybody gets a little. In fact, I don't even know if Ray and Doug know about your background, but go ahead and tell. And I have a fly that's killing me here. I don't know what the deal is, but tell them a little bit about your background.
Sure, Jeremy. Thank you. So I've got a little over 20 years, or right at about 20 years of aviation experience. I came from an airline background. Early on, I worked in business and got into the airlines. Logged a little over 10,000 hours total time. And before I was asked to come and be part of Aqualine at the beginning, I was flying the 747 around the world, fat and happy at the top of my game for a company called Atlas Air. And then I walked away from all of that to, well, quite literally get Aqualine off the ground. That was going on close to 6 years now.
Like I said, people smarter than us.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
That's not that hard to find, though. Just be clear.
Yeah. It's kind of like driving a race car really, really well. You do it, you literally thousands of hours over and over and over again with continuous training, and it gets to be quite easy.
Yeah.
It's the whole key to flying is sticking the landing. That's what I've heard. I'm just
what is it? They said you can't use the altitude above you, the runway behind you, or the fuel you didn't bring, right?
Exactly.
That's true. You guys sound like pilots.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we've actually had a lot of drone stuff has come up more recently, but really over the past I would even say maybe 2 to 3 years. We've really had a lot of drone issues and drone things coming up, and I know several people that have bought drones now. And, when they very first started coming out, a lot of the questions that came up, and we really weren't getting the right answers for them. And now we're starting to see, and these things have been out there for, a few years, and they're starting to show. I think most of us knew that they would have their place in our industry, but what we didn't realize is that they were going to be for, I'll use the word everyday washers to a certain degree. Now, there are rules and things that you're going to have to follow. And this is the question that just came up. How waterproof are these drone motors? Are they perfectly waterproof ones? That all falls in line to, because see, for me, the question wasn't about being waterproof. It's, hey, we spray bleach all day, every day. And how does that affect
about a DJI motor? I'll answer that. No. But here but Doug, talking about that, and seriously, I want to talk about this, and I want to ask our two experts. Anyway, that you get, I never been good at that. I want to ask our two experts about this, because I see more and more washers using their drones, not for washing, but for taking videos and taking stills of that. Do I need, first up, a license you get is the 107?
Yeah, part 107.
107. I failed mine by 2 points. I got a 68. I am glad to sit there and admit that. Because like I said, I had done some private pilot stuff, and this was 4 years ago when it really, I guess, first came out. And I really knew a lot more about the private pilot stuff, or a lot more about the drone stuff. And I missed it. I mean, I really missed it. Thinking that I did know enough. And you know what? I didn't. I really didn't. And they're pretty serious about the questions there. But if I am going out and taking pictures to market myself, to market my company, or I'm doing it for somebody else, do I need that 107 license?
Yes, you need the 107 license, and you also need to know, just because you have the 107 license, and you'd learn this in your 107 information when you take your test and everything. But that doesn't give you permission just to fly anywhere.
Right.
So you've got to know. Actually, when I took my 107 license, I think they've changed some of it since I took my first one, but I had Roger, you can appreciate this, half of mine was sectional charts, and it's
still the case.
Yeah, and that's I actually felt more qualified to go out and get in an airplane and ride with me in an airplane when I got, because I mean, it was all 107 license is very aviation heavy, so you learn about sectional charts, you learn about
stuff that you'll never technically use with your drone.
Yeah,
I mean, that was me. Mine was I literally had questions about the approach pattern to the airport on there, and it's like, where's my downwind leg? Pull that up on this map, and I'm like, but I can't even operate this drone around an airport because it's restricted space. I don't need a downwind leg on here. But
you have you have on questions on there of like G-force and you know, how your bank to weight ratio, you know, stuff that pilots need to know. And we've all said the same thing, like, why do we have this? Like, this doesn't,
right.
The government's involved.
Like if my Cessna 192 is starting to pull G's, I've got much bigger problems in this test right here.
But, that not only just having your 107, but the big key is knowing where you're flying at, right. And you know, you can get what a TFR is, temporary flight restriction. They've got apps and everything for that now, and your no-fly zones, and you can get your lances to lances. Roger, help me out. What lance means? You
know, low altitude, something. But it allows you to fly in controlled airspace.
Yes. But you have to get waivers for it, and so it's a lot of these guys that I see when they're talking about just drones in general on the website, or on the forums and on Facebook and stuff, is the least thing that they start to look at is where, you know, can I even fly there? Do I need to get a waiver for it? Do I need to, you know, is it restricted airspace? And
it looks like a proof of life photo.
Yes.
That's
it. But you know, getting to what we were talking about before with cleaning, you know, there's a world of difference in having a DJI drone and these cleaning drones. And I've had extensive conversations, and Roger and I are friends and got to know each other over the past year or so. And we actually live pretty close to each other here in Alabama and Roll Tide. And sorry, Doug, I had to sneak that in there. Sorry. But you know, I've been very impressed with their company, and I came from a background of, when I started looking, I actually had the idea of cleaning stuff back, you know, when it was probably in their infancy.
You and I talked, I want to say, 4 years ago, about you were building a drone to do cleaning with.
And that's, I was building it. I have access to, because we're in a area here that does a lot of stuff with NASA, and I have some friends who are in the aviation and drone arena. They actually build drones and stuff for the government. And
I want to see, does this come in at all right here? Can y'all see that screen?
No,
before you fly out.
There you go.
Well, that is the Before You Fly app right there. I mean, this is something that, you know, what we're talking about on here. I mean, and it's so, like, where I am right now, it says, that green thing says clear for takeoff, no advisories. Now, if I get over here to the city of Tallahassee, you know, it changes a little bit. I'm actually in a flight area. Then if I get into the airport area, it's now saying, you know, facility map, permissible to go. No, 0 feet. I'm not allowed to fly that drone within that controlled space that I click on the map. I mean, there's even resources out here for us, and I can literally click on any of these areas and it'll tell me. So here's one on the outside of that circle, and it says, hey, you can go up to 250 feet with permission out there. So these resources are available to us. It does not excuse you from having the license out there, but here's the problem that you're going to run into. And Doug and I just spoke about this on a court case that's in there on an insurance policy for a washer that we're looking at, but there is an absolute exclusion for unmanned aerial devices, being drones. And if there is a problem, if you hit a building, if you hit God forbid, you hit a plane, you had an issue with your drone, you're not covered because
Fall to
there's
hit the car.
inclusion in your policy on there.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Please do.
And you're right. Most umbrella policies have UAV exclusions, now. And there's a reason for that. It's because there's a lot of bad practices in the industry. And that stems from the fact that people look at these still as gadgets and tech or just ordinary industrial equipment. And Jeremy and I, full disclosure, Jeremy and I had lunch today. Wonderful sushi here in Huntsville, and we were talking about this just a few hours ago. And that's not what they are. Okay, they're aircraft, albeit them smaller. That's exactly what they are. And the United States, in particular, has led the way for over 100 years, figuring out how to deploy aircraft in the safest manner possible. There's very specific sets of procedures and practices to go ahead and handle that. People don't do that. They go out and they operate and they're unlicensed, or they take their Part 107 exam, which is all done, prep through a computer or maybe an old paper book, and then you take a test in front of a terminal. That's just enough to guarantee that you're going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
It's no different than having a 16-year-old kid take his written driver's exam and then give him a full CDL.
Right.
So,
yeah, I 100% agree. Roger, if I could add into this, just from a guy with personal experience in this, and I knew a guy that had a DJI, and he was washing, and there was I knew a guy. He was washing.
I know this guy
downtown. I think you've met him, Jeremy. He was washing downtown at the Department of Education over a plaza, and this would have been about 6 years ago, from an area, and it was either just prior, maybe even prior to, because when did the 107 license come about?
Oh, they've been out for
2014, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, this guy that I knew was washing the Department of Education plaza, and it was an absolutely amazing, flyover look on here, and also apparently very safe to do. However, whenever the DJI started beeping and said magnetic interference on the controller, and it literally started going beep, 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 magnetic interference, this operator went and said, okay, what is magnetic interference with this? And didn't really pay any attention to that whatsoever. Next thing you know, this operator that I know, the drone goes up about 30 to 40 feet and literally smacks into this 20-story building. And it was just a miracle that it smacked into the Aluka Bond panel and not the glass window 2 foot above it. The DJI comes crashing back down to earth on there, still recording the whole time. It was a great video from what I've heard. But
so if I could, because so many great points there, and I wish I could address them all, but I'm afraid we run out of time. So I'm going to keep it brief. You can get insurance. There's 2 insurance companies. They're aircraft insurers, and they underwrite 90% of the insurance policies in the United States. Aqualine also has an insurance division called Aqualine Indemnity Corporation. That's in the process of getting regulatory approval to issue policies in all 50 states. We don't have that yet, so I cannot issue policies just yet, but that's coming in the very, very near future. Okay. So you can get insurance, number one. Number two, there's a tremendous opportunity for a company, for us, because we have the aviation background. We manufacture the equipment ourselves to aviation standards, and we provide not only Part 107 licensing prep, but in-person training as a part of the package with every drone that's sold, specific to the spray washing industry. And that will allow us that the very, very basic standard of just putting an emphasis of hands-on training, the same as any airline would, allows us to underwrite policies knowing that our risk profile is much lower and come in at half what the going rate is for insurance.
Interesting. Good.
But as for now, in the time being, though, you can absolutely get insurance. There's 2 companies that will write you.
What are the names of those 2 companies?
It's U.S. Aviation Insurance Group, USAIG, and Global Aerospace.
Global aerospace. Correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And as far as the issue with the DJI, not only the other big part of that is once that drone crashed, I'm sure that the owner's only recourse was to first say a little prayer that nobody saw it, but obviously you did. And then
I understand that there was nobody else out there because it was a Sunday.
and then to go buy another drone because good luck contacting China
right.
For tech support for the DJI. So
thank God it was a used eBay DJI, so I heard.
But there absolutely is an issue when you're in those urban environments, and this is something that we saw over 6 years ago. And because we had our engineering team in-house and we had manufacturing, we've addressed it by putting enhanced GPS antennas on the drone, deactivating the magnetic compass because all of that metal around causes it to go wonky. And with redundancy, which is very crucial in aviation, with 2 GPS antennas, allows it to acquire a minimum of 17 satellites at a time. The other big part of that is over reliance on automation, things like proximity detectors, right? Crash protection. Those are very useful when you're trying to dumb down a drone for the masses, something that you get at DJI, Best Buy. But
exactly. Yeah.
It's so restrictive, it makes it very difficult to use that tool in a commercial setting, especially when you're talking about spray washing. There's other drones out there that tout their crash avoidance. They call it anti-crash technology, crash protection, or however they brand it. We can put that on the drone. That's very easy. And for other use cases, we do include it in these drones. For the ones that are optimized for spray washing, you're taking a battery life hit, you're taking a weight hit, and most importantly, those tend to lead to a higher number of crashes because you have atomized aerosolized spray.
I was just saying the blowback from what you're creating on there is going to mess with those sensors. Whenever you said that, I'm like, that's got to make it a little weird right there.
It does. It frequently gives it erroneous information, and it causes it to make sudden movements in unpredictable directions.
Makes a lot of sense.
I hadn't really thought about that too much.
And that's something.
Your cloud 10 foot out in front of you from the surface you're hitting out there. So now you want to back up or go forward as the cloud grows and expands out there. It was. And that I understand that drone operator that I was speaking of, it literally scared him so bad that he didn't pull that thing out on other jobs for about a year and a half because of what happened on there, and starting to read up on what magnetic interference is. And that's part of the whole downtown element and these large rebar metal buildings, and weird stuff happens on that. But it made me realize that if something goes beep, you better made that person realize that if something goes beep, you better dang well pay attention to that beep.
Yeah, and I don't blame that unidentified operator for not wanting to mess it, especially not being able to go ahead and call up the manufacturer and have a team go in and work through and find out what the problem was and find a solution. All that being said, we've addressed that.
Right.
That's not an issue with our equipment.
Now, Roger, so let's talk about your drones here for a minute too. Do you actually have a cleaning drone? Like if I called you and said, and I can't because I'm under a no compete right now, so not thinking about doing this for another 10 months. But if I was to call you up and say, Roger, hey, tell me about a AD. You've got a drone that will clean at heights, correct?
Correct. We have a whole fleet of aircraft, 2 that are optimized for the washing industry. Okay. One is the largest, which is the Endure, can comfortably handle 4,000, even higher PSI, up to an altitude of just a little over 400 feet. Now you're getting over your 55-pound weight limitations and getting into waiver territory. And you're really at the edge of the aerodynamic capabilities of that aircraft. But
no, 400 feet.
Yes.
I was going to say, so, and I'm glad you're clarifying that there's a weight thing there. So even though the drone itself can go to 400, you can't go there, or you can, based on, because you said something else too there. You said without a waiver or something like that. So is there a way to do that?
Yeah, with your 107, I'll jump in here. That part, your 107 only covers you up to 55 pounds. So if you are, and that's payload, not just the drone, that's your payload also.
Right.
So if you are flying, and that's something else that some of these guys need to understand, that you're going to have to get, and that's one thing I love about Aqualine. They've got all this stuff in place, and versus some other and I'm not bashing any companies, but the one, did I just go? I just went dead, didn't I?
Yes, yeah, your camera's off. We still got your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear your beautiful voice.
Yes, there we go. That was just totally weird. Let me reset my camera here.
He's actually prettier like this, if you think.
Hey, listen, the story of my life.
I thought he was the prettiest one out of the four.
But what some guys don't understand is that you have to, if you have your 107, it is only for, there we go. It's only for up to 55 pounds. And then when you go from there, you have to get a waiver to be able to go higher than that. And that's one thing that I was saying about Aqualine that I liked about them, was they have the support and the training. They just don't throw you into a drone and give you say, hey, here's a drone, and that's one thing that
so what does it take to get the waiver?
Actually, you have to, there's a couple different ways to do it. In fact, I just pulled it up. It used to be called a Part 333, and there's two ways to do it. They actually have a section 44807, which is a special authority for certain unmanned aircraft systems. And that is basically a waiver for the Part 107. And then you can go and get an actual exemption from the FAA. It depends on what you're doing. And Roger and I were actually talking about that. Did my camera go off again?
Yes, you're off. We're so entranced by listening to you.
Yeah,
I don't.
Good grief! I can't have nice things.
So when you're saying that, is it something where you have to get an exemption for each and every building that you intend to clean?
Every job that you do is going to require that, and then because it's in a different location now. Roger, you can do they have anything that has, where am I thing back here? So you can get, that's part of one of the FAA. Are you guys finding that you guys can get a waiver for multiple locations, or do you know on that section of what you're doing, if you can do that because some places you can, but it's harder to do that. You kind of have to have a whole system of how you're going to be doing things.
Yeah. So Jeremy, at the end of the day, the waiver, if you're going to go over 55 pounds and if you're going to be 120 feet and below, I mean, none of this comes into a play. So, you're looking at 10 stories commercial or so. Forget about all of this. But if you have to go higher, waiver is one of the options. And generally you're looking, and it does vary, but you're looking at a few weeks or so of approval time. So it just takes really some scheduling, and you do it, like Jeremy said, job by job.
And I want to just point out, I mean, I know we're talking about, in theory here, but if you were 200 foot of pressure hose would be just the pressure hose, not including the drone, would be right at that 50, 60 pound level right there, if not more, if not 80 pounds or so.
Yeah. I actually weighed the 5/8 Curry Tech, and I filled a 200 foot hose with water, capped off both ends, and just weighed that alone. And it weighed with just water. Of course, you're when you start adding soaps and surfactants and detergents, you get a little bit of variance, but it was right about 40. It was right about 40 pounds by itself. So,
I mean, and for anybody curious about this, you can go in there and just, it's actually kind of amazing whenever you look at the water volume of a cylinder whenever you start going a 1/2, 5/8, 3/4 inch hose, and you actually see how much water is in, because that's what a hose is a cylinder.
Yeah.
You think about it, but the volume of that, it just goes up exponentially. Doug and I had talked about in the plant and property class a couple of times, and so like a 1/2 inch hose had for 200 foot of 1/2 inch hose was like 5 gallons of water. 5/8 was something like 12, 14 gallons of water. And it was crazy the amount of water that actually a 3/4 inch, 200 foot section held. So as we're, and you got a lot of stuff going on here. So you've got the weight that's putting you in a different category. Then you've got the work of the drones, correct, Roger? I mean, this drone is now lifting a lot more weight, correct?
Yeah. So what it all works out to is, about 120 feet with a standard 5/8 inch hose. And then the aircraft aerodynamically can go significantly higher than that. Then you're looking at the waiver process here in the United States. And there's also other creative engineering solutions. We have a customer that likes to is up in Canada, who likes to use a telescoping pole, stationary pole, in order to gain, an extra 50 to 80 feet. So what he'll do, or what he does, is he secures the hose to the end of that fixed pole, takes that weight off of the drone. Now he gets the extra height without having to go through the Canadian equivalent of the waiver.
I was actually going to ask that same question. Let's just, for the giggles of it, let's say it is a 20-story building. Okay, the drone can technically only go about 10 stories. What if, because one of the things you can do, from my understanding, you can bring all your equipment on the roof and go down with it. But what if you were to take a rope from the roof, drop it down, pick up the hose as the drone was going up?
Well, yes. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So with our consulting services, we've done jobs like that. In fact, we put together a solution last year for a customer over in the Middle East, and it was actually 2 70-story towers and 2 50-story towers. Now that was a bit extreme. That was a combination of washing from the ground up and doing exactly what you're talking about, Doug, washing from the roof down, and lowering the hose from the roof, from the BMU, the building maintenance unit, the crane, and also getting to a point where we had an additional drone midway in the tether to stabilize the line as it went down. And then the center parts of the building, there were actually, in this tower, there were access panels that could be removed on the maintenance floors, and then getting those in between levels actually flying sideways out from the drone and dropping down.
Yeah, there's a ton of, like, you can actually one of the ways too that I was looking at doing was like he said, basically, if you've got a bigger building like that, you can actually do like the window cleaners do with the and use a rigging system for like you would for flying, right, and do the same thing and take off from up top and fly down and have your hose come over the side and just move your move your lines and stuff over. Right. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat.
That's really, really interesting to think about, because because I know we had talked earlier about there was, a couple of other brands that you had to, basically the theory was put it on top of, a cutout on the roof and have them do that. So it's really, really interesting. And still, you said a couple of the ways to skin a cat, which I just have to interject here. I love that saying, and it makes me wonder, was there ever like a professional association of cat skinners?
Yes,
out there where people sat around and debated, like, well, Jeremy, you know what? I think you really ought to go from the head down.
Yes,
and tail up. I mean,
and I probably the saying today should be more than one way to skin a deer. I mean,
Yeah, there you go.
Because I mean
that makes a little bit of sense. Right there, the case.
There's a lot of different ways, but
How often do you have to renew your license?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
And that's to come back to the point I meant to bring this up before. In the law enforcement arena, like when when I was helping, when I've helped several departments, we personally steer clear of DGI in law enforcement. The main reason is, and it's so when you're dealing with life and death situations where I have to, I as a law enforcement officer, I can bend rules that in a life or death situation that
Right.
I don't have to sit and I can justify it.
Right. I don't have to get permission. I don't
Yeah,
have to,
yeah. I mean, I got somebody dying, and I've got to
Right.
find them ASAP with thermal, and bleeding out somewhere, and can't
Right.
nobody can find them. Everything goes out the window at that point. But one of the things I'm not a fan of DJI for is they have geofencing, which is great for the public. It's just not great for law enforcement.
Right.
Geofencing, they've changed some of the ways they did the geofencing now. But the older birds, like you'd go, like I'm currently right now I'm in my building, I'm in a no-fly zone, like because there's an airport literally half a mile that way. So I'm in a no-fly zone. So if you were to try to take off with one of the older DJIs, it either wouldn't take off or it would take off long enough to get the signal and then just quit working.
Right. Or it may cap out at 50 foot, not at 50,
In fact, our department here, I'm in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, is where I live, and their department here, the whole department is the city limits is under no-fly zone, and they actually have a big DJI. It's an older Matrice, and they actually have a law enforcement waiver that you're supposed to put in for law enforcement that overrides that. But it just depends on what day and what, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. He's called me before, the lieutenant's called me before and said, "Hey, where you at? Can you come bring your bird?" They had a escape guy that the Secret Service and the Secret Service, the U.S. Marshals, and a couple other agencies went to go serve a warrant and pick up a guy from his work here in town, and it's in a plant. And he decided, he sees the uniform officer and just decides to take a dip out the back way. And so he was on the loose, and their DJI would not go over 50 feet. So I actually came over and it's because we were right next to the airport, and they called the airport and shut the airport down. And I basically was flying, by out of the jurisdiction there of the FAA, but it was, you had escaped in a fugitive at this point.
Well, yeah, at that point, I mean, it's there's a reason for doing that.
Yeah, and so so different birds have different. So for me, we use Autel, and there's other companies that are out there, but that's what we use for that. But the one thing I like about Roger's company, besides that, I will tell you, so it came up earlier in one of the comments, I don't remember who said it, about finding out that when they were at the was it Fort Benning or someplace that they took their
Todd was
okay, found out that it's a no-fly zone, and so that was one of my questions that I had. Fort Benning. That's one of my questions I had for Roger. So where I'm at, we are in the Redstone Arsenal, which is a military base. And for me to do any kind of operations in that, it has to be what's called a blue cube. So because the U.S. government, Roger, how long ago did they change that? Was it been about 4 years, 3 or 4 years ago?
It was about 3 or 4 years ago, but they seem to take a kind of a real slow attitude because they realized that they didn't have any drones.
Yes.
Go ahead and replace them.
So everybody had DJI, and I can either confirm or deny that some of the 3-letter agencies still are running non-blue cubed for their intel
target practice.
Yeah, and it's for training. I think is what it is how they
training purposes only.
Training purposes only in real life scenarios. But I thought that was kind of funny. But there is very few, about the only company that is fully blue cubed. So blue cubed, for those that don't know, blue cubed is, nothing is made in China. So everything is, the brains and everything is, nothing is manufactured in China.
And nothing could be corrupted or sent.
Yes, so nothing can be. It's kind of dumb because I could care less where my parts and stuff are made at. But long story short is I asked Roger if they could blue cube, and they said they can. And for me, that's big because if I'm going to do anything, half of Huntsville area is in a no-fly zone that is covered by the so they wouldn't let me fly. They wouldn't let me fly. Period. Even if I had my had a
all your licensing and everything else.
And I got to put this comment in here, and I want to go back to Bruce Martin's comment, but Rich just came in here and popped in. FAA has entered the chat. So yes. Rich is a private pilot who flies a lot. So, but that's just amazing comment there. Anyway, so let's go back to Bruce Martin. Okay. I mean, I was a big scale commercial guy. Believe it or not, a drone would have probably made sense for me. Jeremy, I know that you are a big scale commercial guy. Obviously, it makes sense for you. What about the average guy? And Roger, maybe you can answer this, like washing a roof. How much sense does this make from doing it from a drone?
On a residential side.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So first of all, and I can tell by a lot of the comments that have come through that people haven't seen this in action and are skeptical.
Right.
The U.S.
Well, hold on, and let me interrupt you. Where a lot of people have seen it in action is at the huge convention, and some horrible publicity photos from another company that'll be unnamed, that literally it was like before and after of something. Remember how it had the dead grass all over? Doug, I think you and I even went up to the people and said, you guys really ought to go back and get a different picture, because there was a 50-foot.
I remember that
dead zone. You remember, Jeremy? A 50
talked about that
dead zone of dead grass where you guys have shown. So that was a lot of people's exposure to it. So, and I'm sorry, Roger, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but please go on.
Sure, of course. So specifically the Enduras, tailored for pressure washing and soft washing. They've been sold originally through the company that designed them and originally manufactured them, DroneVolt, out of France. And then we acquired that IP and brought the manufacturing over to Connecticut. So that's going on 6 years, a solid 5+ years of service, of which case the majority of them that have been sold over the last 5 years are still in service. We know because we track for the warranty program. So even though this is brand new in the last 18 months or so in the United States, that's not the case for a lot of the world. So the ROI has been well borne out in other markets. As far as the sole proprietor or anybody, you have one man, one drone. Depending on the type of work that you're doing, you're cutting your time on job as much as 80%. You don't have any setup time. Forget about any scaffolding. Forget about even chasing a ladder around, let alone harnesses or anything else like that. You're saving a ton on your workers' comp because now you're not setting foot on a roof or even going up on a ladder. You get a large apartment complex that's 4 stories where they don't have any anchors, and the only way to do it efficiently is to go ahead and rent lifts. You're spending $20,000 plus in equipment rental to go ahead and access that. All of that goes away.
Assuming these guys actually do stuff legally here too, though. So
yeah, I mean,
right. Okay, but all right, that's another issue too.
Doug and I are the biggest proponents in the world for doing
things correctly
too.
You're cleaning, a 3,000 square foot residential roof you can do in 20 or 30 minutes. Obviously your mileage may vary because every job is so highly specific. It's just broad terms. And you're looking at being able to clean, whether it be soft wash or pressure wash, comfortably between 10,000 and 15,000 square feet an hour.
Wow.
With one drone. We have a customer, and they posted up on our social media that washed a brewery, Budweiser brewery, a little over a month ago. Typically, it's a 10-day job with about $23,000 in equipment rental costs. They did it in 2.5 days.
Wow.
With one drone. So, he's a big operator. That's why he was doing Budweiser. But I'm also talking with somebody who's buying just one unit from us to wash an apartment complex.
Yeah.
And I'm confident he'll be coming back to us for more units as he expands.
I know a company that may or may not have purchased my old company, and part of doing that, and it may or may not be a brewery by the same name in a major city, and they have to rent an 85. And I don't have to rent it because they own one, but they have to go and have the expense of taking it there, putting 3 guys in that bucket, getting them up to an 80-foot level on there to where they now start washing on areas like that. And yeah, I mean, all of this becomes a time, cost, labor issue out there, especially I think for the commercial things, to where we can put this bird in the air, go up there, wash it, and basically probably be done with that by the time you got the third person up to that 80-foot level.
Yeah, exactly right. And Jeremy and I have talked about this several times in the last few months. What you see in the power washing industry is the very beginning of a major transformation to an old industry that hasn't really had.
I believe that
in decades, and a lot of people are kind of hanging back with a wait and see attitude.
Right.
But a significant number of people aren't, and they're embracing this full on.
I'll tell you what, where the money's going to be made in this industry, and I've said this to Doug, and I'm more than happy to sit here and tell this my brilliant idea, that if anybody wants to take it, I encourage you to do it, because I swear to you, you'll make a mint. But $1,500, $2,000 a day, I show up with my drone, and here's the pumping system I'm requiring of you, and it's going to either be a booster pump or whatever it is that works best with your drone. This is what, and it's going to have these kind of connectors on here, but I show up as the drone operator, and you get 8 hours a day from me doing that. And my fee is going to be X.
You may know a guy that might be doing that soon. So,
and I think he should, I think he should.
I think you're going to be having a couple guys there.
If I wasn't under a no compete doing that, I would be, if I wasn't under, because I'm still sitting there going, you know what? I'm not really cleaning anything. I'm flying a drone. This guy operating the pump is cleaning something right here. But Jeremy, I'd be doing it in a heartbeat right now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's
so, go ahead, Roger.
No, you guys are dead on. And when one of the gentlemen on the panel mentioned this to me today, that he was thinking about doing this, it's a gold mine, and frankly, it's not something I'd really considered prior to that. I just didn't think about it. But as Jeremy and I were discussing earlier this afternoon, there's a significant entry to becoming a drone operator in the power wash industry. Barrier.
In fact, you ought to think about hiring him and having a wash division of AD. Oh, sorry, I'm giving ideas out here.
We're an airline. We sell, support, and maintain and manufacture. So
I'm sure he could go in a million different
definitely
directions.
Answer Rich's question here. I know the chems over time would affect the motors. How are they with redundancy if you have a motor failure and they can be landed controlled?
Okay, good question. So there's SOPs with any aircraft, including ours, right? Set of procedures and a standard way of operating. And it's really very basic. Our equipment is completely sealed against water intrusion, dust, chemicals, all of that stuff. All the avionics are not going to have an issue. You've got an ABS cover over it, the rest is carbon fiber, and then you've got aluminum and metal and copper in the motor windings. Very, very basic stuff. Simply rinsing the drone down after the job with water, dropping basically special machine oil, a couple drops into each of the windings to put a protective coating on it and have a nice safe barrier. As part of the ongoing maintenance and preventative maintenance, which is also very important. When GE sells Boeing an engine, and that engine is put into service, those parameters are constantly being monitored and sent back to GE. So GE knows when the engine's going to fail long before it fails.
Right.
It's the same thing with the motors. It's part of the regular maintenance schedule where we upload the data from the drones. We can see if friction is increasing in any particular motor, what the efficiency is dropping by, and we can go ahead and predict that motor is getting out of tolerances, and we need to go ahead and pull.
So you're monitoring my drone. If I have AD, you're monitoring my drone the whole time, and you can actually call up and say, Ray, the number 4 is getting a little wonky.
Yeah, we can do that. Now, we're not sitting there all the time as it's flying, but we periodically.
It's just sending back the data.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, that's somebody mentioned Michael Ovens mentioned the water towers. So I think it was King Clean.
Just did one, yeah.
Just did one out of Iowa, and they purchased their own drone. But you know, one of the interesting things that, and they've been on before. I know they watch. They're a regular watcher, and please holler at, let me know if I'm wrong on this. And I talked to, Nick knows the guys at King Clean, and Jacob was on here earlier. He might even know. But I think they had, it's great because they're up in Iowa. And so their drone would go to a certain point, which was hitting greatly midway around that water tower, where northern water towers, they get dark around the bottom. And does anybody know why that is? Okay. So you're up north. So the water is warmer up there.
Ah, yes.
Think about it. So think about this. And in the southern, it's hotter. So the top of it gets dirty. Southern water towers get dark from the top going down. Northern water towers, where the water is warmer than the outside air, they get the mold growing from the bottom going up on there. But now we're so hot, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, our stuff, the water vapor cools up top, and the Gliocapsa magma grows at the top of the water tower. So, like, I understand that, like, they couldn't necessarily get all the way to the top of the water tower on those, but they didn't need to either. They needed to hit about the halfway point of those 150 foot things. So up to about 125 foot on that bowl, they could hit that and clean it beautifully, and it looked great on there.
But if they would have done something with the hose, that would have allowed them.
Right. But Florida, you would have to go all the way to the top and spray down, because our stuff doesn't get dirty necessarily on the bottom half of the bowl on that. So,
and all that can be, like we were talking before, if you had something like that and you were in a higher plane than what your bird can handle as far as your elevation, you could do a loop and actually run the hose up ahead of time up to the top of the section, and then take your weight distribution off.
Okay. And
is the drone the one that's telling you what weight it is at that point? I mean, is it something that you're getting feedback that's telling you, hey, you're at 30 pounds, you're at 32 pounds, is that what's happening?
No. You do the calculation. There's basic rules of thumb. And as far as regulation, the FAA is strict. However, there's
and you have to show if I'm flying a drone and I'm on a 9-story building, the FAA happens to come up, because I think at some point they're going to start getting involved in this more so.
Oh, they definitely are already. So
they're involved. I mean,
is it something where I have to show those calculations?
No, they have unlimited.
They'll show you.
They'll figure it out. They'll do
That's kind of why we started this thing out. Do you need that operator's license with the drone if you're taking pictures? Because I mean, somebody can figure out if you're taking a picture with a drone or not on this, and you could get fined. I mean, unless you could sit there and substantiate that you had a boom with a flyover camera and a lift and doing that, it's kind of hard to fake drone footage on there. So I would see that.
And FAA likes to find first and talk later. And
I'm sure,
like a lot of the other 3-letter agencies that has a lot of oversight, that they kind of you don't want to upset anybody. So don't mention it gets expensive, and so and that's the legality part of it big, and that's and I've probably researched this to ad nauseum when I was looking at building mine and Aqua, and I'm not just saying it just because I've got to be friends with Roger, but I became friends with Roger just from the fact of I like their drones, and they hit all the Roger. I probably, when I first met you, I know we talked at nauseum for I had a ton of questions, and
almost an hour and a half.
Yes.
And I can actually vouch for you, Jeremy. I mean, you and I have been buddies for a long time, and I think it's been a year and a half. A year and a half ago, you told me about you've been into drones, and could have even been 2 years ago at the huge convention.
Yeah, I think it was almost 4 years ago, Ray.
I mean, screw this. I'm going to build my own, where you've been out there searching and looking. I mean, the tagline of tonight's video saying 2 experts on there, like you're pretty much the biggest layperson that I know who knows more about drones than anybody else. I mean, given Roger, who's in the industry of doing drones, you being a cleaner, but I would trust like if I had a drone question, there would be nobody else in the industry that I would call up, besides you tomorrow and say, Jeremy, what do you think about this? Because I know you've been talking about doing this. So,
which is funny because I don't have a cleaning drone as of right this.
I agree, but you've been sitting there talking. You maybe had analysis paralysis, but you actually found the right.
Yeah, and
one,
and that's the what we had talked about before. Doug and I had talked offline, and that's actually one of the things that came up with this. And let me dance around this cautiously how I say this. There's some rental places that are renting drones,
yes,
and requiring only a 107. So here's my issue with that. My issue with that is just because you're a 107 pilot, and Roger touched on this earlier, and he and I talked about this today. Just you have to understand the most of these guys that are 107 pilots, there is nothing that, it's not like a driver's test. You don't have to go out and flying a regular drone is pretty much idiot proof today.
Right.
If you go get a decent DJI,
well, my DJI is idiot proof until
it's not.
Supposedly,
right. That guy that knows DJI is idiot proof until the sensor goes off.
Here's the problem that we're going to find in our industry, and this is a good and a bad. And this is one thing I love about Aqualine, is the problem you're going to have with the rentals is I don't think that they looked at the ROI on that, because all they're requiring is a 107 licensed pilot, which is good. But here's the problem. It's kind of like you getting a driver's test and me sticking you in a semi. Is it something you can do?
Right.
Yes. It's going to be a little overwhelming, and it's not something that I would just jump in, because most of probably 95% of the people that are 107 pilots have never flown anything bigger than maybe like a DJI Mavic, which is a bird, a bird about this big.
Right.
So you're now going to Roger, tell me again what your wingspans are on the.
It's close to 4 feet in diameter.
And okay. Roger, answer Rich and Maria, Rich's question here.
Richard's asking, are these already equipped with remote IDs or ADS-B?
Yes.
And is there settings in place that will not allow the drone to fly in a no-fly zone, or to get the LAA-NC approval if needed, the Lance approval?
Okay, they are remote ID ADS-B compliant. In fact, every drone that's manufactured for the U.S. market is required.
Has to be. Yeah,
for some time now.
But is it geofence though? Is
no,
yes.
we don't have geofencing.
Yep, and that's
that's actually a safety feature of y'all's to not have the geofencing.
Well, yeah, these are commercial grade. It's commercial grade equipment, right? And that's why the training is so important.
I want to go back to this right here. Do you have to have a license to fly a DJI? If
Yes.
you are using, hold on, no. If I have one, I could go out there and fly it all day long. As Ray Burke,
The hobbyist is what they call it. Hobbyist.
But if I said Ray Burke, power wash store owner, and I'm going to do a video of a washer and post this on Power Wash Store as a commercial entity, now all of a sudden, or I'm charging him a rental fee or anything like that. Now I'm using it to market my business. Now, yes, I need a 107, correct?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. So you can actually, they're coming out with a, and I don't want to misspeak on this. They're coming out with, the FAA's hasn't made it final yet, but they're actually going to make everybody, even hobbyists, have a hobbyist license.
That's probably not a bad thing, honestly.
With the remote ID, you'll be able to identify. So as law enforcement, there's supposedly a way that we can identify any drone that's out there with the owner with the remote ID. I don't know how that works yet.
People don't realize how many restrictions there are on these drones.
Yes.
Like national parks. You do not fly your drone in a national park. Those are complete no-fly zones. How do I know? Because I'll tell you this. I have a DJI. I flew it. We're in Cherokee, North Carolina. We're watching the elk feeding. And next thing you know, there is there's a park ranger on my shoulder going, "What are you doing?" And I was like, watching the elk. And he says, "Not here, you're not. Land that thing right now." And I said, "I'm sorry." He's like, "No, they are expressly forbidden in every national park because," and they gave reasons. You don't want to spook the wildlife. What if you crash landed it and you shorted out the battery and it caused a wildfire? Littering. I mean, just and dummies operating with me, you know?
Yeah, that's and to your point, I didn't finish this earlier. What I was saying with the 107 that I do like about Aqualine is that they just don't throw you in the deep end. I think with the rental issue, even if you got a person that has a 107 and you're completely legal, everything now is obstacle avoidance. All your low grade commercial stuff, your DJIs, your Autels, your Skydios, they all have obstacle avoidance. So most everybody flies at obstacle avoidance. So the issue you're going to have now is you're flying this humongous drone, and then you're flying it without obstacle avoidance. So it's not just something you just want to just take up. And I feel like you're going to have a high probability of crashes and issues that arise because you actually, part of your 107 license is if you cause over a certain amount of monetary damage, or if anybody has to go to the hospital, or you have to report that to the FAA.
Right. I remember reading that.
Yeah, and
let Roger also answer this. So a Facebook user, Casey, literally, if I fly a DJI, post to social media, and market the pics, is that a no-no? And I need a 107.
You need your 107. The regulation is very clear. Anytime you're flying a drone in support of a business, it's a commercial operation, and you need your Part 107.
And the FAA has even gone so far as to say people who post things on YouTube, they just recently come out with this. They're looking that just as a hobbyist, putting that on there. If you can monetize it all on YouTube, it's not considered a business. So, if you have these great wildlife and most of those cinematography drones and everything are about the size of an Aqualine cleaning drone. you have to have your 107 for those anyway. But if you just happen to get a great video shot of something and
right, and now you're monetized.
Now you're known. You became really good at just photographing, and now you're monetizing on YouTube, even though you don't have a business. FAA looks at that like, hey, you're making
that is a business, yeah.
Well, you're making money off of that, and
so like I said, they're looking. I don't know the date, but they're looking at making everybody, even your hobbyists, be so it's somewhat have a license for a hobbyist license.
So what are you guys' thoughts on what you're seeing so far out there that is the biggest mistake? And I'm going to say, I'll throw the caveat in there, aside from not getting a license, right? What is the biggest mistake you see most drone users or operators, the biggest mistake they're making? And let's throw that as a two-part, as in, first of all, using a small drone, second of all, using the larger drones.
Roger, go ahead and answer that. Go give your answer first.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's the same for both. Essentially, what it boils down to is not respecting the drone as an aircraft. And the biggest part of that is not understanding the need for practical experience, hands-on training. It doesn't take much. Our training course in Connecticut that comes with every drone, it's 0 to hero in 5 days. Frequently, it's less than that. Somebody's a quick learner. Somebody who doesn't have any drone experience, or maybe some just flying a consumer grade drone from Best Buy.
How many hours would you say that is of actual flying time?
I'd have to talk to the training instructor. So there's some extra time built in there for people who need remedial training and also for bad weather days. But they have them in there in the classroom and out in the field from 8 in the morning to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. I don't know how many hours it is of flying time, to be honest with you, but it starts out with gathering a baseline on day one. You do a little bit of ground school ahead, the first half of the day. And then you get a little bit of time on the simulator that we have in our hangar there. And then you fly one of our trainer drones. Actually, they won't give me the 40,000 one as a display model, but they gave me the trainer, which is this one back here. It's just a quadcopter, has similar aerodynamic characteristics to the larger drone, same software, same controller. They go ahead and get comfortable on that. I mean, believe it or not, well, believe it, because you guys have all flown. Remember when you flew a drone for the first time, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, even though it's not a big deal. And then when they're ready, they'll move up to flying the indoor, doing some basic maneuvers, and then they're going to go out in the field and they're going to wash assets with their instructors for the rest of the time. You'll get at least a solid 3 days if you need it out in the field washing.
So my answer to your question would be along with Rogers, but I will throw in there the biggest thing that I see is not knowing your and just because it's so prevalent where I'm at, your no-fly zones, your TFRs, which is temporary flight restrictions, not being aware. And like I said, DJI has geofencing already in, and it will actually let you know. The new DJIs will actually let you know if you're in a no-fly zone, and won't let you fly unless you got to go around some stuff with it. But probably one of the biggest things I see with just hobbyists is flying in areas. I got a call actually from, so when I was working with the guys from Muscle Shoals Police Department, they were, I was telling them that if you see a drone flying in the city limits, you can stop the person. We were talking about, legality wise about stopping somebody for drone. And I said, well, if they're anywhere in Muscle Shoals, you can stop them. And they said, well, what was your probable cause be? And I said, because everything's in a no-fly zone.
Right.
So you can stop them to ask them if they have.
I showed earlier to the guys, on my thing. I mean, if you look at Tallahassee, and people don't realize this about an actual. Again, I'm going to show the map here of Tallahassee. The before you fly. So if you look at, see that circle around there,
yep,
that's the airport. That's the no-fly zone. And again, it's
every airport has
Tallahassee. Now, again, it is stepped down like a reverse pyramid on here. So you might have what, 1,000 feet here, you go up as 5,000 feet, you go up as 10,000 feet,
Well,
you go up as 20,000.
well, that's your actually your classes is
Right. But, right, the aircraft classes, which goes into your private pilot license.
Or,
yeah, not 107. But yeah,
you can legally only go 400 feet.
Right.
So legality wise, with the 107, you can go 400 feet is your cap, and AGL versus now if you're inspecting a tower or you're inspecting a building, you can go 400 feet out from the building, and you can go 400 feet above the building.
Because you actually have the mass that you're expecting. You can go up and over that.
You're not limited to there, but you're limited
from my training. And like Jamie said, I've been talking to Roger. I love the fact they have legit training to use their drones, not just about money. They want you to know how to safely use their drones.
Thank you, Jamie.
With PWNA or PWNA, I'm sorry, PWMCA.
Just lost a friend. Okay.
God, sorry, Jamie. Damn it. But you know,
he just logged out. Okay.
Damn it. Not PWNA. Damn it. I'm sorry. God, I get in tons of business.
And actually, what Gene is saying here, Gene says, my brain is hurting. I'm with Ray. Using a drone for cleaning is a completely different skill set. The company that puts their drones together with professional operators will dominate the market.
I agree.
That goes exactly back to what Ray was saying earlier, where if you have a company that just specifically flies drones and that is all you do, I think you do have a good place here, because learning all the rules and the being able to know where to fly, when not to, all those different things. I think that would be a very good company to start.
I mean, Doug, let's look at it from the cleaning, and Jeremy, you'll get this, and Roger, I don't mean to exclude you from this, but this is cleaning guys talk here. But you know, the guy that does the 5-story building for their first time, and they've never done a big building before, and they go out and they rent.
I remember that day.
So do I, brother. So do I. But you know.
You know what we call that now?
Yeah, I remember it all too well.
We call that a Tuesday.
And you're like, yeah, I can do this, you know, because Home Depot rents lifts out there, and what an absolute cluster it is. Because by the way, Home Depot doesn't give you any training on using the lift. Doug, you remember this? I mean,
oh yeah.
They don't tell you actually what you have to have it level, or what the beeps mean, so when it finally beeps 4 times, you've actually got it in level, and you sit there for 3 hours trying to get the blank and JLG in level on there. You know, where literally if you'd have hired the drone operator at this point, a good qualified drone operator, if he showed up and you had the correct pumping system, it would be done by the time you had the lift leveled.
Well, we talked about that with somebody else too, about, hiring somebody. And this goes back to Roger's point, or I think it was Roger might have said, maybe it was you, Jeremy, that was talking about, this company that's now renting the drones out, right? So imagine that you go and you rent that JLG, 60-foot lift, right? And most of the people that are there at Home Depot, because they got the 50-foot tow behinds, they have no idea really how to operate them. Okay, the rental centers like Sunbelt and all that, they know better. United knows better, but still, drones are going to be something kind of completely different. They're not going to have somebody at their facility that has that 107 license to begin with, right? And now they're going to be renting these things out to people, and we got to see your license. Are they even going to know what a 107 license is? That and then secondly, they're going to hand you a box, and when you say, how do you fly this, they're going to be like, I don't know, you're the one with the 107 license.
Right.
Yeah, there's the manual.
And Roger, I don't know if you saw this, but Bruce Martin is actually asking you to contact him if you want to take that number down.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And
he's out of Plainsville, Connecticut, which I didn't think Connecticut had more than one town in it, because it's a very small state.
And this is, I really think this will definitely be a game changer.
Yeah, it will.
I think it already has. But I mean, again, it's been in the industry for a little while, and We
But
naysayed it in the
they
beginning.
keep changing. They have been. I mean, and who are the two big? There was Appellix and Lucid, I think, are the two. And I don't mean this in any disrespect to them whatsoever. Those are the two big players in there, and both of them kept on changing their programs and their pricing, is my understanding on that. Yeah. Where they had lease programs, they had pricing programs, they had sales programs on that, and then you could do the on there, and it's nice to see more drone oriented people coming into the market, and especially offering the training with that.
Thank you, and that's because of our experience in aviation. We spent our entire time at the airlines.
Right.
People really don't realize it, but we're training continuously.
Right.
We have
absolutely. You are. You 100% are. Excuse me one second.
Quarterly modules called CBTs, computer-based training. We have recurrent that's every 6 months, every year. We're in the simulator. We're running through emergencies. We spend an entire day every year doing what's called CRM, crew resource management, where we're going ahead and combing through cockpit voice recordings and NTSB investigations for fatal crashes, reenacting them, picking them apart step by step, finding out what the chain of events were, and at any point what could have happened that didn't happen to break that chain that resulted in the accident. Constantly debriefing after every flight where something unusual happens. Okay, what worked, what didn't, what could we have done better? Changes the way you look at everything. Changes the way you climb a ladder to paint your house. It changes the way you drive a car, drive a motorcycle. Changes the way you look at drones. And that's in our DNA. That's really at the root of why all of us left the airlines to come and start Aqualine, because we saw a tremendous opportunity to professionalize what still remains a very chaotic industry in its infancy.
And if correct me if I'm wrong, you just don't you guys just don't do cleaning. You do agricultural and what all? Well,
I'd have to imagine they do such a wide gamut that cleaning is just a new thing for it. They haven't been making their money off of cleaners. Probably is new for you.
Yeah, we do it all, guys. Everything, because at the end of the day, the drone is just vertical lift. You're
an airline,
right? It's
a tool that you're using.
It's a tool, a very specific one, but one that's very versatile, like a John Deere tractor.
Right.
So you just change the payload out for whatever it is you're doing, and something like the Endure, it's so large and has such a long loitering time. And it's so sophisticated on the software side that you can use the same drone to spray wash and then just change out the payload and go to agricultural work, or go to inspecting high voltage transmission lines for corona discharge, whatever it may be.
So your software updates, those are included. Is there a cost with that? How does that work out?
I'm sorry, Doug, what was the question?
So you've got software updates that are going to have to happen on a regular basis, I'm assuming. And is that part of the purchase price of one, or the lease program of one, or are there additional costs that go along with
There are no additional costs. We want the customer to have the most up-to-date software so that they can be the safest.
I want to go back to whenever I just got off camera, I still could hear the audio. And something that, Doug, you brought up right here, there's guys of us here who have been through really traumatic experiences in this industry, and all of us have had, Jeremy, you've had bad crap happen. Doug, you've had bad stuff happen. I've had really bad stuff happen, and you don't even understand how bad stuff. Yeah, you can read your insurance.
How bad it can get.
You don't realize how bad it can get until how bad it can get, guys.
I think this goes back to the insurance thing,
to the training, to the insurance, to the everything, to the giving your person the best possible standing to be at. But it's why, Doug, kind of you and I do this as a passion, where we sit there and talk about insurance, where we sit there and talk about inspecting your truck, where we sit there and talk about plant and property protection, and we've done a whole class on it, which, by the way, you can see at the Huge coming up this year. real soon here in about a month.
30 days, yeah.
You don't understand, and it's not us selling stuff. I mean, a lot of this has been our lives, what we did to make our living. And guys, trust me whenever I tell you this, that whenever crap goes bad, it goes bad. And there is no patching stuff back together after it's gone bad for you. You better have had the training. You better have had the insurance. You better have had everything you need to do. You better have had every bit of training you can have whenever stuff goes bad for you, because you don't recreate that after the toothpaste is out of the tube right there. Can I?
And that goes back to what the other thing I'm known for is my policies and procedures and OSHA stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the guys that get in this, they need to realize that they're going to have an SOP for their business for OSHA part of it. So Aqualine has an SOP. I think we talked about that. We didn't touch much on that, but the one thing I like that the more I talked to Roger about his company is that they have a lot of things in place. I can buy equipment from a lot of people. I can buy a lot of pricing, maybe cheaper somewhere else. But if I buy from Ray and I say, Ray, I don't know what is best. Tell me what is best. Ray has been there, done that. So
or how do I operate this?
How do I had a question before we went online. And I said, hey, I got to get with you tomorrow on something.
Yeah.
And
we'll figure it out.
And it's something simple that but I just needed some I don't know for sure what I have or don't have. But you've got to have policies and procedures in place, and you have to have a company that's going to stand behind you. I don't know. I haven't done research on any of the other companies. I just know that when I found Aqualine, that they hit all the cubes that I needed to have, the check marks that I needed to have, that that stopped me from actually building my own drone, because they had everything in place. And the more I learned about them, the more I realized that they actually have the training. People don't understand the training is going to be the biggest thing, because what they're going to want to see is if you hit a building and you break off 3 of the props, it's not going to fly right.
Right.
That drone. And then you're going to have a flyaway. Now you got a tethered flyaway. Or you have, they're going to want to, FAA is going to, they just don't go, hey, you hit a.
Oh, it's cool. It's cool.
Good.
No, it's cool.
Good. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Like Rich said, if FAA gets involved in nothing good comes when a 3-letter agency gets involved in anything.
I can attest that I've already gone through my OSHA stuff, and I do not want to go through that again.
I've been through DOT, OSHA, IRS.
They are not.
When the
they're not on the compassionate. They're not on the compassionate side. They don't go. Tell me what you were thinking at the time. Let's just
tell me about your feelings.
Tell me about your feelings. They're going to want to know. Hey, what kind of training did you have? Hey, what kind of and that's where I think some of the rental things is going to go sideways.
The rental go sideways unless you are a qualified renter, or or you've got a training program involved. True. That's why I said, Jeremy, somebody that is a qualified operator, I show up for $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 a day, and I get your done for you.
But why would you rent? Right. If you're specializing and you'd have your own equipment.
So answer Gene's question here. Is there a network and or app available for professional drone operators for hire? And Roger, this might be something that
he probably already, they may already have,
think of, but hire in different tasks.
I'm wondering if Gene works for us, and I haven't met him yet.
Gene's one of the smart ones out there.
Gene is actually he's a really smart guy and been around for a while as well. So, it's always good.
You ought to be basically making notes of everything that Gene says because, Gene's pretty amazing here and
very smart guy.
So actually there is. This is looking forward. It's kind of a sneak peek towards the latter part of this year, maybe early next year, but not beyond that. We designed, and it's been available for download for over a year on Apple and iOS and Google. The world's only drone on demand services app. It's a yep. It's a it's a ADOD, Aqualine Drone on Demand.
All right, I'm going to download it.
So now you can download it, you can play with it, but the functionality is not switched on. So you request a job, it's going to come to us, but that's it, just for gathering data.
Hey, we got about 10 months out there, so we'll talk.
And the only ones who have access to that work are our customers who have bought our drones that we've trained. We count them as small business partners, not franchisees. There isn't any subscription or branding requirements or anything like that. It's a straight subcontractor prime relationship.
Wow.
So let's talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind. Let's talk about pricing on drones. So you did say that you're leasing drones, is that correct?
I'm sorry, hold on. What, ADOD?
Yes, sir. Aqualine Drone on Demand.
So you are leasing drones?
No, we don't lease drones.
You're not leasing. Okay. So it's strictly a purchase of the drone. So give me the price ranges of the drones. And I feel certain that every single one of them is going to come with the training included in that.
Absolutely. Yes. There are, I just had a conversation today. Customer bought a drone. He has a family member that's sick. He's not gonna be able to make a scheduled class. So he had mentioned, well, maybe I can just, skip it. And I said, that's fine. However, this is how important it is. With every drone that we sell, it's typically 2 years of end-to-end coverage with the drone. So we warranty it even if it crashes. We cover it 100%. And it's also the training, and it's the small business partnership. If the customer elects, and also the Part 107 test prep as well. So it's all pretty much, it's turnkey. If the customer elects to forego the in-person training, that's fine. But we are not going to we'll warranty the drone for manufacturing defects, but we're not going to cover it for any mishaps. Number one. Number two, we're not going to onboard them as a small business partner. And number three, we may even go so far as to scrub our branding from the drone, so that it doesn't end up on the news in a heap.
Right. That's actually very smart.
Drone today in Melbourne or Vero.
There was a crash up in Buffalo, New York, and it was a regional airline. It was back about 15 years ago or so, and the only thing that you could make out was the tail that said Continental Airlines sticking up from big char mark. And so it was reported, Continental Airlines had a crash, and Continental spent the entire day covering, calling everybody, every media outlet. It was not Continental. Stop it. Take it off. It wasn't us. And trying to switch the narrative to the airline, which was Colgan, who had crashed. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to, take a risk that something like that's going to happen with our equipment and our brand too.
As you're saying, it was okay. I was like, wait, your drone? I just put two and two together. No,
it was actually so bad because the flight left out of Newark, and I was based in Newark at the time, and I was flying in Continental system as a Continental Express pilot, and I had family members calling because they were scared that it was me,
right?
Because of the misreporting. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So no, we don't lease, but we will warranty the drone, small business partnership, all of that, and we'll finance as well, depending on credit profile, and if you want to stretch the payments out, it could be as little as $700, $750 a month. And the pricing for the gold package for the Endure, which is the largest of the drone, which is capable of both high pressure, 4,000 psi and up, and soft wash, high flow. That's at 40,000, and we can step it down if we go from 2 years of coverage down to 1 year of coverage for enhanced warranty support. The Ultra does just about everything that the Endura does, except for it can't handle that high pressure recoil because it's slightly smaller, which makes it more akin to other drones that are known out there in the market.
I'm just going to say, if I was 10 months in the future right now, I would be telling all you guys that right there. If somebody doesn't jump on this and do this, you're just duh.
We've had this conversation today already.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. You've been having this conversation several times.
And there's a lot of people out there who, they're cleaners, they're a 1 or 2 man operation, and they don't want to.
Dude,
they don't.
I don't even have to hire me. I don't even have to do it myself. I can hire an ex-Reaper drone pilot. Seriously, yeah. I can hire somebody who's come out of the USAF. I can hire a former Army guy. I can give a job to, oh my God, so many people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't know why I lost my video.
I don't have to know this. I have to know the business.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Here, Air Force guy. Okay, you're an old Air Force guy. Michael, you guys flew prop planes whenever you were young, like hand-started prop planes, probably bi-wings. But yeah. And I love me some Michael. I'm just messing with him.
Yeah. So what's the best piece of advice that you would give, Ryder, to somebody thinking about getting into the drone field at this moment?
Get in it early, because you're going to have a situation in the next 12 to 18 months where a lot of people are going to look around and say, why didn't I jump on that?
I agree. I think there's a lot of specialty cleaning. Doug and I have talked about this many, many, many times. And we actually talked to it to the point of to the detriment to ourselves and to the what things we could do. Oh, look at there. Tommy Tuna just joined us. Look at there, Doug. Where the hell are you, buddy? We're more than happy to give info. We could all sit here and go, well, we should do this. This is our good idea. But you know what? We don't do that. These are things that we want to share with our community of Spray Wash Academy, people that are members of on Facebook and on YouTube. This is such an amazing idea for people to sit there and get out and do. And there's been so many nuggets of knowledge, and we're not saying go out there and do this, but like I said, hire an ex-Army or Air Force drone operator. Things, get your 107 license, little things like this that we talk about that are so important to things,
Yeah, absolutely. And what's happening is you're seeing the old way of doing business will be falling by the wayside, but it's giving rise to a whole new skill set and a whole new opportunity for the people who, are poised to take advantage of it. And
exactly. You know what? Life changes while we're sitting here. I mean, Doug and I have been in this industry a fairly long time compared to this industry, 12, 14 years or so. And the industry has changed in front of our eyes in front of it. And luckily we were able to change with it, at the same time. I mean, we were able to go and adapt with it and grow our companies and become, relatively speaking, large companies. I want to be humble about it. This is the next level. This is the next thing. This is the next specialization is where it's at. Solar panel cleaning. How many guys are not doing solar panel cleaning right now? Drone cleaning. Again, guys, I'm telling everybody that's listening to this right now, if I was not under a no compete right now, I'm literally in my mind going, am I not cleaning or am I not just driving a drone at this point? Because I could do that. This is where this is a $1 million business for somebody if you would buy a drone and go out there and do it for people under contract.
What kind of regulations, FAA regulations, do you guys see coming up in the future that maybe we're not, that people aren't getting their 107 license aren't thinking about?
Jeremy, you want to go take that?
Say that again.
What kind of regulations do you see coming out in the future from the FAA or from any regulatory body that are going to affect drones and affect 107 licenses?
FAA it's a government agency, so it's run by politics.
Their job is to create regulations.
Regulations. So
yeah,
I think you're going to see stricter control on things and they already have gotten more stricter. Like I said, they're going to make the hobbyists get licenses. Because as it grows and as the drones get bigger and better, and I think they're going to have all it takes is one person to mess something up. So, the one that makes national news for something stupid, you're going to have regulatory boards and everything else and changing this and that. So, the probably
Russell shows Alabama cleaner crashes drone into.
let's hope that's never a headline. So, but no, they are constantly changing. Since I've been doing this, like I said, around 6 years, they have changed. In fact, they actually make a lot of law changes ahead of time that the industry can't keep up with. For example, they made all new drones have remote IDs, and they had a time deadline for everyone who has a regular drone. If it's under 55 kilograms. So that's something that's like your DJI Air. It wouldn't need it, but anything higher than that, that has to be what's
that guy that I knew that had a Mavic 2?
Yes,
they'll be over that.
Yeah. So your anything is over 55 grams. Am I right on that, Roger? 55 grams.
I think so. Yeah.
Here's a question about somebody. So
you have
that with Tom offline. So Gina never got in touch with me. So
is there any way? I'm sorry to cut you off in the middle of your thought.
Are you good?
Is there any way for me to just post my number or email?
No, absolutely. If you'll sit there and post a comment down below.
Here,
I was going to ask, how do people get in touch with you directly for questions outside of this?
I'll share this. I'll share his contact info with.
Yeah, would you share it? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Jeremy.
But let's see here. Share contact with Ray. And
I will. So you want your email? You want me to?
And Roger, you are now in the Spray Watch Academy group. Do us a favor and go ahead and post in there. Tomorrow, whatever. Don't worry about it today because it's getting late. But post in there, introducing yourself and all that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. We'll love professionals in there, and there's.
But to answer your point, Doug, what you were saying, they make a lot of changes, and then the industry doesn't have a solution for it. As of right now, you're supposed to be under regulatory with having the RFD, your remote registration. If you didn't have it already, all the new drones have to have it put in. The problem is them getting them cheap enough now for people to have to buy them to put them on there. They actually had to extend the date out further because nobody had a solution for it. Another case in point is in order to fly over crowds, you had to have basically a parachute system, and they had a great idea for it, but nobody knew what to do. Or so, it's I think the cheapest thing that they have right now available is like $2,000 that is approved by the FAA for flying over crowds with just
I've got the greatest parachute story. So back whenever I was a regular person and not a pressure washer, I was a real estate developer, and a lot of people heard my story on this, and I ran with some fairly wealthy guys. One of them owned a SR-25, and this will, Roger will probably understand, the Cirrus 25.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the few people that ever actually saw his recovery parachute system deploy when he was not in the plane.
What happened?
So he had let me figure out the way I can say this anonymously. He had a golf course community up in the mountains that was a very difficult landing, like where they blasted out a side of the mountain in Asheville, North Carolina, or close to there. So you had only about 100 foot between rock facings to land, right? And a King Air came in, and it got wonky on the thing, went over there, the winds kicked it into there, and it kicked it over to his SR-25 as this King Air tumbled down the runway. There were fatalities. But it went into his Cirrus. He happened to be on a tee box on the golf course and literally watched that tumble down the runway and into his Cirrus, and where the ballistic parachute ejected out of his Cirrus airplane.
My gosh.
So yeah, it was a really crazy scenario right there. They were his Cirrus was one of those people that ejected, but without him being in it.
Hey, at least the chute works, right?
The chute worked, yeah.
If I could jump in, and everything Jeremy said was dead on the money. A little bit of a contrarian view. The FAA has taken quite a few black guys tonight, and they're certainly not the most efficient by a long shot agency out there, but the regulation is necessary, and most of the ones that are out there are actually pretty good. And Jeremy is spot on when he's talking about more regulation coming and things tightening down even further. In this country, the really, really cool stuff that you can do with drones isn't legal yet. In order to be able to do that really cool stuff, then you need to get to full automation, away from the requirement now to have one operator per one drone, and to have beyond line of sight and heavy payloads over people. All of that's coming.
And in some respects, and the FAA has taken some hits, but slow regulation sometimes is good regulation. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to anybody here, but it's an emerging industry.
Now, it's a couple quick points. I'll try to be brief. In order for them to the FAA to be comfortable to open up the airspace for those more complicated operations, they're going to drill down with more and more regulation. And there's only going to be a few people that are really going to be able to do it, which is why we bore the expense of launching Aqualine drones as a fully funded airline.
And that's where I'm going.
And now it's really unique. It's a really unique niche in drone operations, power washing and spray washings, because it's just by accident, it comes together where the existing regulation pretty much allows pretty darn close to the full efficiency and benefit of drones in this business. Still
Right.
some restrictions there, but for the most part, you can get your ROI. I can't think of many other use cases for drones under the current regulation where you can do that.
So do you think then that the some of what we're talking about tonight is everyday washers ending up with drones? Do you think that that will then not be the case because they will make it to where it's so specialized? And I mean, this industry is not full of lazy guys. That's not how I mean this in the slightest, because it's a hard working bunch of guys. But at the same time, when it comes to jumping through regulatory hoops and things of that nature, you're not going to see a bunch of guys doing that. They're just
Correct.
not into that. So if the FAA is going to step in and throw in a whole bunch of different regulations and stuff, and I think that's even part of the reason it hasn't skyrocketed already. What are your viewpoints on that?
Yeah, excellent. Outstanding points. And that's why it's important to work with a company like Aqualine Drones. And that's why we came up with the concept of small business partnerships. That's why we went ahead and, like I said, we have the relationship with the FAA and we have the fully functioning airline under a Part 135. There's only 3 other companies in the country that have that: United Parcel Service, Amazon, and Google under the Project Wing. And Amazon's all but thrown in the towel with their delivery drones. But that's a discussion for another day. That's number one. Number two, quite frankly, in the next couple of years, you're going to see fewer operators in the power washing industry because anytime you're going vertical, more than 2 stories up, it is very difficult to be competitive on a whole lot of jobs when you're not using a drone and somebody else is bidding on the job that has a drone program.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see a lot of people, the ones who are not able to clear that financial hurdle, the ones who aren't able to go ahead and go through the series of steps to go ahead and get the license and maintain it. You're going to see them either fall by the wayside or be relegated to doing, the stuff that's on the ground.
And stuff, yeah.
To answer Tommy's question, though, here is the DJI before you fly. So you see all those, and no, it's not great, the best resolution right there. But you see that's Chicagoland right there. We're just Chicago, not even Chicagoland, because that's a lot bigger out than that. But go to before you fly, Tommy, and it's a free app. Pull up that, and that can show you some of the airspace restrictions you're going to have in Chicago area.
If you want to just to see something fun and that will blow your mind, and I didn't do this before till I got my 107, but just Google sectional charts for
sectional, exactly.
any big Chicago, Miami, probably Dallas and New York is probably going to be your.
They're all there.
It will blow your mind. It will. I mean,
that's part of the 107 test.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
charts like they would give you the sectional chart of Atlanta and say, what does this mean right here on this sectional chart?
So, I want to clarify something real quick. It is sectional chart, because a lot of times it's sounding like the sexual chart.
No X.
Wow. Well, you know what? Is it that a guy from Louisiana?
That's a stab at my Alabama.
Yeah. Your Floridian and Alabama accent.
He breathes Alabama air, and we all know that's not good. Bama air is not a good thing. So
it's the purest air in the country.
Sectional charts. And the funny part about Roger, you'll appreciate this. When I took my 107, my first 107, well, the renewal thing is kind of a joke for the renewal part of it, but for the 107, I took it actually before. Now the 107 encompasses your night flying and your flying over crowds in that part. When I took it, it didn't have that. So I had to actually take a different subsection test for that. But Roger, when I first hit my 107, I kind of knew sectional chart, but I never looked at a sectional chart, to be honest with you. I never looked at, I thought the people that I talked to took them and they have like 30 different tests. Well, I got the one that has, it's 60 multiple choice questions on the 107 test. And I got the one that they said was because I'm thinking you get 2 hours to take this test. I'm thinking 60 multiple choice questions. Why do I need 2 hours?
Yeah.
And I got the test that had literally half of it was sectional chart related.
See, and I got mine that was all mainly sectional. And I'm thinking back to my private pilot's test, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm good with this. I've gotten sectionals, but then it was like, but wait, it was 10 years ago that I actually studied for this. And,
and so you literally, I finished my test in an hour and 50 minutes. And they give you a piece of paper and a pen, or a pencil and a pen. I'm sorry, pencil and a piece of paper, and that's the only thing you can take in there with you. And I actually made a legend with my piece of paper, because they'll ask you approximately on they'll tell you which page to go to, and they'll say on page 45 figure.
But wait, I don't have my manual here. Yeah.
No, they give you everything that's there. You have to do it, but you have to go. They'll say, from Carson City, Nevada airport, approximately 7 miles northeast of the airport is a structure. Is that structure 400 feet AGL, 400 feet MSL, or 400 feet? I can't remember what the other one was. And you have to sit there and look at the sectional chart and figure out. First, you have to find it, because it's not just you can't just guess at it, because I see it's a tower, so okay. And then, you have to see if it's MSL or AGL. And so it's mind blowing, but there's some really good study guides out there. And the one guy who has a study guide says
bottom left, that's Jeremy Keifer from Alabama. He's 30-year washer, clear shine. Jeremy's awesome if you've never met him before, but Jeremy is a drone. He is, hell, go back to the beginning and watch it, Tommy. Shit, it tells you who he is.
A very knowledgeable gentleman.
Yes. Sorry. I can't. Yeah. No, he's amazing.
What's the worst state for flying a drone? You said Florida, but what's the worst state aside from Florida for flying?
You should trust him. That's how I feel about Jeremy. Same way I would say about you. You should trust him.
Yeah.
The other state.
Yeah, because I'm sure every state has their own little rules and regulations.
But hold on, the FAA is supreme above all states.
There you go.
Well, I understand that, but
now
the states are also going to have their own little rules and things in there.
No, so they pretty much leave that. So there's a lot of battle that goes on, because what people don't understand, the same thing like flying over somebody's property, and that's where it gets into the legality issue of it. Where do you become a peeping Tom into where you're flying over or something to get somewhere else? And that's where you're
800 feet away.
Yeah. And
right.
Case in point, probably when I said that Florida is the worst, that's on the legality side of law enforcement. So let me give you a case in point. The legality part for us as drone operators in law enforcement. I can't. I had, when I first got my when I was the only drone pilot, one of my detectives came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to he said, "We're looking for a mule," and I'm in a small town where I'm at as a reserve officer, and he said, "We're looking for a mule," and I'm thinking a horse, like a mule horse, that type of thing. It took me a little bit into the conversation to realize that he was talking about a Kawasaki mule and not a, and it wasn't even that. It wasn't a Kawasaki mule. It ended up being a Rubicon or it was a Kubota. It was a Kubota.
I thought somebody was smuggling something. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Drug mule or what? Yeah.
So we go out to this location, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to fly over there and look and see if we got word intel that it's back behind their property." And that's what I thought was a mule, because I don't know why I thought that, but they all laughed at me because I thought that. But I told my detective, I said, I can't. And he's like, "What do you mean you can't?" I said, "Legality wise, I can't." Because he was going to try to look at that to get a search warrant. And I said, "You're going to have to go get a search warrant." And he said, "I've got to go get a search warrant for you to fly over." I said, "Yeah, you got to go get a search warrant to fly over that, because if you can't see, in the back, like if somebody's back fence, if it's chain length, you can fly over it. If it's secured where it's got like a regular fence that you can't see through, if you can see it from the public roadway, it's admissible to fly over. But if it's not, you have to get a search warrant, because anything past that I would find in that situation would be thrown out of court, because they would subpoena me to court and I would have to testify on. But now, so in case in point with Florida has legality wise, anything that is taken for court, they have to fly with their camera facing up.
Yeah.
And they have until they get to where their mission is at, where they're actually have whatever they're looking for.
Right.
So they can't go, "Hey, I saw this flying over into my mission," where I can right now.
Right. You better not have audio in Florida either, because Florida's a two-party consent state.
Where Alabama's a one party.
My wife is a private investigator here in Florida, so Tanya's licensed a private investigator. Yeah, you better not. You better understand the laws.
So Florida passed a lot of regulatory stuff when drones first came out on the legality side of it. Like I said, their stuff isn't admissible in court if it's if you're flying over. Whereas if I'm flying a mission and I'm looking for dope and I got a search warrant to fly over an area, or I got a farmer that says, "Hey, I think I got some guy growing dope back here in the back," I'll go fly a reconnaissance mission. And in the process, if I'm flying over that, I fly over Jim Bob's house, and I happen to see a Bolo car that we've had on a Bolo, and I'm like, "Oh, cool!" Like, I know that's
you fly over Jim Bob's house, you're getting shot down.
Bolo car, so.
Which actually, by the way, just throwing that out there, I get that a lot. People are like, "I'll just shoot the drone down." It is actually a federal crime that is a multiple felonies to shoot down a drone. By the way. Because the FAA considers that as an aircraft. So it would be the same penalties without the murder part of it as you shooting down an airplane. Because it is technically an airplane. So anybody who shoots one down will get to couple of those 3-letter agencies come to your door and take you away. And that's a little.
And Florida more allowed, but you still will get visited by one of those.
Yeah, so but to answer your question, legality wise, the FAA controls everything that goes on. You own your property that's there. You don't own any airspace.
Right.
And people don't understand that.
It's just like water rights. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you own here, it's very rarely like you own shoreline here, you don't own waterline here. That's where a lot of people say like they own in Florida, especially you own to the high tide line. Well, at low tide, people are welcome to walk out there wherever they want to, and they can walk through the water on the beach all they want to. And you can't say boo about that. It's, riparian rights versus Avarian rights, which are the rights above you. You may own the land that your property sits on, but you don't own the water rights.
You don't own the
airspace. Air rights above you.
And so, you know,
So
people go, so the legality part of that is, I think you may see some regulatory stuff, but the FAA it'll come down to the states always.
yeah.
Will go to the FAA. You still got some small towns, and they're. I thought that they would, the government, the courts would throw it out, but like Orange Beach, for example, Orange Beach,
Right.
you can't fly a drone in Orange Beach.
Mhm.
You have to get they get away with it saying that you can't take off and land from anything that, you know, they own the rights of the ground. So you can't,
Okay.
but I don't.
You can use it privately. I mean,
So
you
if
know,
you stand in the back of your truck and you hold it up,
But you can't take off anywhere in the state of, or anywhere in the city limits of Orange Beach.
but here's why it's important to be partners with somebody like Roger and his company, though,
to help
because
check.
this is why it's important, you know, because you've got a company behind you that can help you always figure out things like that, right?
And hey, guys, we're running on a little over 2 hours now. We really should start to try to wrap this thing up, not to be the buzzkill.
Well, I mean, I hate to wrap it, but it's been such an intriguing conversation. I mean, this is amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Oh, you know, Papa's got to go to bed, and
Yeah. Well, let me go here too, Roger. Just so you know, you've always got an open invite, and depending on how, you know, we can have another chat with you, you know, at a given point in time later on. Are you going to the huge convention?
Yeah, Doug, we'll be there. And I think it's safe to let the cat out of the bag. We're going to be teaching classes there, free classes,
Awesome.
spray cleaning with drones. And we're going to be doing full flight demonstrations. We're working with the venue to do it right outside on the property of the Gaylord. Not sure if that's going to come through yet. We have a plan B, which is right across the street, and doing them at regular intervals.
Right inside the atrium. Come on now.
We would if they'd let us. I promise you. But we've got a huge booth there. I know Jeremy's going to be there. We have a couple of high profile customers, big customers, both of them that we met at the huge convention last year, that are going to be there answering questions as far as their experience working with Aqualine drones. So come by and say hello. I'll be there too.
So before we sign off, one more quick question, and that is, aside from the cleaning industry, what do you see as what industry do you see drones being a game changer?
Everything.
I agree with that.
Roger and I were just talking today at lunch of other business ventures that I could branch out when we get ours up and going, of different things that we can do. And it's infinite if it involves, because you
Jeremy, inspections. I mean, literally, you know, I had my coordinator at one of my largest accounts probably 7 years ago, maybe 6 years, 7 years ago, because I had told him I had gotten a DJI, and he said, "Can you do inspections for me?" And I said, "You know what? I would. However, you have not one, but 2 helipads here, which change the whole dynamics of me doing inspections for you. But you know what? If you're willing to put the time in, if you're willing to do the licensing on that, oh my gosh, I mean, that account that I'm speaking of would have been worth $30,000 to $50,000 a year of just flying around it and doing inspections down in the pits and down everything that they had to do, what he was asking me to do.
I mean,
guys, we really got to wrap this up, and greatly appreciate your time there, Roger, and
thank you,
Jeremy.
Anytime you guys want to come back on, and this is obviously, I mean, we've had, wow, anywhere between 90 to 30 people on at any given time, and that's just on the live. Wow.
What,
I mean,
what are we at now? I can't see it.
right now, the one that I'm on, Doug, where are you at on yours?
Mine says we're at 11 at the moment.
Yeah, I'm on 11 right now.
What was our highest?
We were up to 90 at one point, and
Wow.
so you know what? There's obviously a ton of curiosity about this. So
Yeah.
Come see Roger at the Huge,
Yeah.
and then talk to him, and he'll be. They're a great bunch of guys, and just from a washing standpoint, and from my knowledge of drones, they pass that. They've checked every box that I have wanted in that. So I highly recommend them, and come see them at the Huge.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Appreciate y'all, and see you next week.
Guys, very much. And I think we'll do this again here real soon. And I can't wait. Let's actually do it after the Huge, after like kind of a huge wrap up.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And thank you, Doug. Thank you, Ray. Thank you for the hospitality. It's been a while since I've done one of these.
The expertise.
Appreciate it very much.
I'm sorry, Doug's so ugly.
Thanks, guys.